In the still of the night, I think of you. My heart beats with every thought of you. You're the one I can't let go. In your arms I find my home. Love, sweet love, it's you I'm dreaming of. Every moment with you feels like a...
Doing well, I see. The man looked at Chuck. I am sorry, I am not hurt, and I don't know what you're talking about. She turned away from him. She sat down trying to calm her racing heartbeat. Are you alright? Chuck asked. Fine. She forced a smile. What was that all about? Helen turned to watch the man join a woman at another table. It's nothing. He mistook me for another woman. Our food has arrived. I am famished. Chuck heaved a sigh and swallowed his next question. There was something about Helen that didn't quite meet the eye. Did she know the man? Why was she so spooked? A few tables away, the man kept staring at Helen. Then he picked up his phone. Good evening, Chief. I believe I have found Kat. Yes, I'm very sure. Mind-blowing, but she's with Jacoby. Helen sat beside Chuck in his car as he drove her home after dinner. She could hardly remember the dinner and the time they spent together. After talking to the man who called her Kat, she couldn't concentrate on anything else but thoughts of the man. She was very confused about the whole incident. She didn't know whether to be happy to be recognized, go after the man and ask how he knew Kat, or hide away because he might as well be one of those who want her dead. You've been very quiet, Chuck murmured beside her. She smiled at him. She knew this was not the dinner they had both looked forward to. She had envisioned a very romantic dinner in a dreamy restaurant filled with quiet laughs, hushed whispers and loving smiles. But rather, she had gotten nothing but fear, anxiety and perpetual feeling of panic. She wouldn't blame him if he wanted nothing to do with her anymore. She cringed inside as she remembered her monosyllabic answers to his questions, while she tried to drag her mind back to him. Then, suddenly, she realized that half of her fears were for him. Whatever she had pursuing her from her past, she didn't want him becoming a part of. She didn't want him in harm's way because of her. She was going to make sure of that even if it meant never seeing him again. Are you alright? He asked again. She turned and smiled at him. I am more than alright. Thank you for a wonderful evening. I don't know, but you seem distracted half the time. She didn't seem distracted, he thought. It was more than distraction. It was like fear. And she wasn't like that till someone called her Kat. Chuck was a bit confused and didn't want to believe what his overactive imagination was telling him. Was it really a mistake of identity? It's you, she said, and he turned, wondering what she was talking about. I was distracted because I don't know how you want this evening to end. He peered at her. Somehow he knew that wasn't the only reason she was distracted. Giving, the want, the need and passion for her could keep a man distracted. He was reading something else, something mysteriously dark, something he didn't quite understand. It doesn't matter what I want, Helen. In this relationship, you are in control. Did he just say relationship? She thought, feeling her heart light up. So he sees this whole thing as a relationship. She couldn't contain her joy. So I'm turning the tables here. How do you want this evening to end? She stared at him for a long time. What I want is different from what is right. Women, he sighed. Fine, I am taking you home. I am in no mood to unravel a riddle, neither do I have the time or inclination to seduce you tonight. Whenever you're ready, babe, he said, and took the turn that would lead to a part of the town. Helen stared at him for a long time, trying to deduce if he was angry, but his face showed no emotions. She didn't know if what she felt was relief or disappointment. He didn't even argue or persuade. Just like that, he let it go. She was on the brink of asking him to turn back, but then she didn't want to appear cheap or desperate. She didn't understand her disappointment. He had just given her the very thing she wanted and had been afraid he would never give her time. Time to remember who she was, but she couldn't help feeling that he let go so easily because sex was something he could get easily even without having to ask for it. Chuck briefly looked at her and smiled. Women were a mask of mystery most times to him. The only thing he was sure about them was that they can't be trusted. The truth was, he wanted her with every fiber of his being, and right then, he was wondering why he let her decide how the evening should end. She gave him the chance to take what he wanted and he threw it away. Yes, he wanted her, but for the first time in his life, he was afraid. Afraid of sleeping with a willing woman. His friends were right. She was a keeper, and he wasn't sure he wanted to keep her. So refusing to sleep with her when he wanted to with all that made him a man was purely self-preservation. He might want this woman. He might even be falling for her. But the question he asked himself tonight was, did he know this woman? And the answer was he didn't. He wasn't going to fall in too deep until he did. He slowed down as he entered her street. "We are here," he announced. He watched her look up from her musing and attempted a failed smile. He was going to find out what was going on. He was going to find out who she was. "Wow, what a wonderful night. Thank you," she said. He leaned forward and kissed her. As soon as his lips touched hers, he regretted acutely not taking the chance she gave him. Fear be damned. She could be Jezebel herself, and he couldn't care less. Here in her arms, he knew with certainty that this woman was his, was made for him and only him. Helen melted into the kiss with all that made her a woman, and wondered again how Mma could be right. Where did she get the strength to wait if Uche evoked the same feelings in her that kissing Chuck did? What was she going to do? Where was she going to get the power to fight such supreme need? Slowly he raised his head and smiled at her. "I swear it gets better every time, babe." He kissed her again, but briefly before she could take in what he said to her. With all his willpower, he opened the door for her. "Now run along before I change my mind and take you home. Or come in with me," Helen thought as she came down from the car. But no matter how much she wanted to invite him in, she knew the time was not right. Waving him briefly, she turned and walked into her compound. He waited till her lights came on before driving away. Behind his SUV parked another car. The driver watched them. His phone rang and he picked. "Yes, it is really Kat. What do you want me to do?" "All right, I'm on my way." Chuck walked into his house feeling restless and discontent. The dinner was not a total failure. The few hours they spent dining revealed more to him than their weekend away at Eden Castle did. She was very sophisticated. The exclusive restaurant being waited on seemed like something she took for granted. She was classier than she let on, and most of all, she was intelligent and was current with the happiness around her, even as distracted and afraid as she was. Chuck was very curious. The man had called her Cat with certainty, and she had casually dismissed him, but there was more, he thought. "You missed dinner," his mother accused. "For crying out loud, Pat! Where were you?" "Excuse me, I don't get this. Even if you were a real mother, I'm a little too old to have my whereabouts monitored. We have a deal. We all have dinner together for a month, or I live with the knowledge of where your sister is," he muttered under his breath. "I was having dinner with a friend," he said through gritted teeth. "A girlfriend? Splendid." She clasped her hands together. "I must meet her." "No, I draw the line there. If you insist, you may as well pack your bags now." He turned and walked away. In another mansion somewhere, The man telling Helen gave his report. How do we proceed? The man asked. Let me think about this for a while. The distinguished-looking man said, 2 things. I don't want to meddle with the Okohas. Right now, I need a big favor from Chief Okoha. Forget that entire rumor that he's not interested in politics, has no political ambition. We in the game know he runs this country. So if we must get cats, we have to lure her away from Chuck. Secondly, Al, don't you think she behaved a bit out of character? How? You said she kissed him goodnight and he drove away, like they were on a date. They were on a date, sir. The cat I know would not let a big fish like Chokoko go with just a chaste kiss. As far as her target is me, what do you think? Cat is calculating and manipulative. She does nothing without a reason. Maybe she needs the Okoha's connection to ruin you, and Chuck is her way in. The truth is that her closeness to Chuck is a grave danger to us. What if Chuck is not her final target? What if her final target is Chief Okoha? Then she would not only ruin me, she would control this whole country. We need to eliminate her, Okoha or not, Al said. Yes, but it cannot be tracked back to us. You only do it if it poses no threat to Chuck. I don't want his father getting involved. If we hurt his son, he's going to look, and I assure you, he can find us. We'll be careful. Besides, once Chuck finds out who she is, he might want nothing to do with her, Al said confidently. You had her and let her get away, even though she was severely wounded. Look where that got us. We have to deal with her a second time near election season, this time around. Make sure she stays dead. Helen entered Uma feeling queasy in her stomach. The queasiness she knew was caused by 2 factors. She had an appointment with a doctor, and the fact that it seemed she had been found by very dangerous people. She greeted her colleagues with distracted mind. From the little research she did on the internet, there was no medication for her medical condition, yet she felt the need to see a professional. She kept telling herself a doctor would surely know more than Google. She entered her studio and dumped her bag. She didn't understand why she was so nervous. It wasn't as if she would see the doctor today and remember immediately. And thinking that some mysterious evil has found her was a bit absurd. The man who had called her cat looked more like an executive than a thug. Heaving a sigh, she sat down and glanced at her watch. She just had an hour before she left for the doctor's office. She glanced at her phone, and then she realized the major reason she was uneasy. Last night, Chuck had called what they were doing a relationship. One would think in a normal relationship, you call and receive calls. She had received none from him. To be precise, he had never called her on the phone before. If he had spared her a thought, then he would have called. She concluded. Neither have you, her mind whispered. You haven't gone 5 minutes without thinking about him, and yet you have not called him. Heaving a sigh, she picked up her phone and scrolled to his name. She didn't have the courage to dial his number. She was just being silly, she knew. Though he called what they were doing in a relationship, she didn't feel in the least bit like she was in one. She didn't feel like he belonged to her the way she felt like she belonged to him. Summoning her strength, she dialed the number. Several times she wanted to cut it, but she knew it was too late. He would know she called. Chuck here, he said as he picked the call. Helen became speechless. How possible was it that the mere sound of his voice could do magical things to her inside? Would have the power to render her so excited that she wanted to tell him everything about her night, and yet render her so nervous that not a single word could come out. Helen, are you there? Yes, she said at last. I think the network is a little bad. She lied to cover up her nervousness. Okay, how is your day going? I am good. As soon as I stepped out of the shower and hit the bed, I was out like a light. So I never got the chance to ask if she brought home okay. That was lame, Henning. She could hear her mind whisper. He chuckled. Did you call me to seduce me? No, when you talk about yourself in shower and in bed in one sentence, it paints a picture in my mind, and I'm too far away to do anything about it. She smiled secretly. I am sorry, I didn't mean to seduce you. You are smiling now, right? Then she laughed. Just like that, her quizziness was gone. It feels good to be wanted, Chuck, she said bravely. So what are you doing later in the day? He asked. I am planning on a quiet night, music, and a mean Chinese takeout. Interesting. I'll bring the takeout and wine. Just make yourself sexy, he said. Okay, sir, she said and glanced at her watch. She was almost late for her doctor's appointment. I have to go now. See you in the evening, she rang off.
In the still of the night, I think of you. My heart beats with every thought of you. You're the one I can't let go. In your arms I find my home. Love, sweet love, it's you I'm dreaming of. Every moment with you feels like a gift from above.